Well, on the first day of his second term in office, President Trump declared a national emergency at the U.S. southern border. Since then, thousands of active duty U.S. military personnel have descended on the southern border to fulfill that mission. Scripps News military affairs correspondent Maya Rodriguez joins us live now from Fort Huachuca, Arizona, near the southern border. Good afternoon to you, Maya. So you had really a rare chance to embed with the military to see exactly what is going on. What have you seen?
Yeah, you know, Patrick, there are about 10,000 U.S. military personnel who are now operating around the U.S. southern border. This, of course, is part of that Trump administration surge, even though the number of migrants crossing the border is down dramatically. Now, the military told us their mission out here is twofold and mainly revolves around surveillance of migrants crossing the border and of cartels that are smuggling drugs. In fact, they told us they have observed drones operated by cartels observing what U.S. military personnel are doing along the southern border. Like you mentioned, we got a first-hand look at their mission and the challenges that they are encountering.
For nearly 2,000 miles, the United States and Mexico sit side by side, sharing a border that, at times, stretches into a desolate landscape. Scripps News traveled to one section of the border in Arizona with the U.S. Army on a Black Hawk helicopter to see for ourselves the military's new mission within the Joint Task Force southern border.
Their mission is to support Customs and Border Patrol in controlling the U.S. southern border and preserving the territorial integrity of the United States.
In a remote section of the border in southern Arizona, we saw this. It's a Stryker, a military personnel carrier that is usually armed and deployed to war zones. This one is not armed due to only being tasked with observing. But more than 100 of them are now stationed along the U.S. southern border, clearly as a deterrent.
That's really what we're doing with the Stryker out here. It provides us great mobility to get soldiers where they need to be to observe on the border.
And what have soldiers observed from the Stryker here along the border?
We've observed a wide range of activities that varies widely by station. Mostly it's individual or small groups of illegal immigrants coming across the border. That's primarily what we've been able to observe so far.
And observation is all they've been doing so far. Military officials tell Scripps News when they observe migrants crossing the border, they notify Border Patrol, who can then intercept them.
What happens when migrants see this vehicle? Do they run from you guys?
A good portion of what we've observed is what we call turnbacks. Migrants who are detected while crossing the border, they either cease activity or they go back across before there's any interaction.
It's a bit more intimidating than a regular SUV that Border Patrol might have.
That's fair to say, ma'am.
The military says they are not doing any law enforcement along the southern border and staying firmly on the U.S. side of the border. This despite the fact that military officials tell Scripps News they've seen drones operated by Mexican drug cartels that are observing U.S. military personnel along the border.
We are privy to significant reporting on that. That is of significant interest to us because we're operating aircraft in the same area. We are observing, we are monitoring, and then we are passing those observations directly to Customs and Border Patrol.
A mission strictly of observation, they say, for now.
Now, U.S. military leaders tell us they have not engaged with those cartel drones in part because they do not have the authorization to do so. But they tell us they do have the right to self-defense. And if any of those cartel drones threatened American troops along the border, the military says it would take action. Patrick.
Wow, Maya, what a great inside look at what is actually going on the ground. So here's a question. Did the military explain why they aren't actually trying to intercept or shoot down those cartel drones?
So they say, again, that they don't have that authorization, but they did add that their commanders are aware of this situation, and they're currently in the process of trying to gain additional authorization for their mission in order to engage with those cartel drones. They also said they're in the process of getting additional equipment out here for electronic jamming, for example, to deal with those cartel drones, Patrick.
So watching your piece, it sure seems quiet down there at the border. I don't know if that's just the way it sort of seems. I'm really curious, did you see any immigrants crossing? And given how quiet it is, how long is this military mission going to last?
You know, we did not see any of the drones. We did not see any migrants down at the border. Like you mentioned, it was quite quiet where we were. But again, that could also be because we were surrounded by American military personnel, and that could have potentially kept people away from that particular section of the border. What they did tell us about the length of their mission, at this point, there is no end date for it. They say they will be here as long as President Trump tells them they need to be here. Patrick?
Maya, were you surprised by anything that you saw down there? I feel like we've covered this so often, it's so hard to see what's going on.
I think it was the striker that struck me the most. Frankly, that is a weapon of war, something you're used to seeing out in the battlefield, and you're seeing it here on the border, so that was unusual to me, Patrick.
All right, Maya Rodriguez reporting from the border. Maya, thank you so much.